Back inside the Business Pulse, I'm Chuck Barham, and we're brought to you by the Freedom Chamber, online at freedomchamber.net. And one of the founding members, we're proud to welcome him back. It's Eric Olhausen from Old Glory Bank. Welcome in, Eric.
Good to see everyone. Glad to be here. Thank you.
All right. I've been breezing through your social media on Old Glory Bank. On LinkedIn, I check it out on X, and it says the unification of banking and crypto is here. Walk us through what that means for Old Glory Bank and people that may want to become an Old Glory Bank customer.
Absolutely. Thanks for giving me the chance to talk about Old Glory Bank. Just what we are introducing sometime next quarter or the first part of 2026 will be the unification, really the first we've seen of traditional banking, seeing your checking and savings, moving money, credit card activity, that sort of thing that everyone's used to, but within the same banking environment or the same interface, also being able to engage in cryptocurrency transactions, stable coin, just a completely consistent, seamless activity or ability for our customers to engage in really their total financial picture. And to us, this is really the ultimate fulfillment of what we've always promised to our customers. First of all, your listeners might be familiar, but we are a pro-America, freedom-oriented bank, Old Glory Bank, customers in every state of the union. Some really great folks involved in it. Some of my co-founders are John Rich, on our board, Larry Elder, Ben Carson, Sean Spicer, Bill Shine, a number of great folks, the former governor of Oklahoma, Mary Fallon. And our promise to our customers is to never cancel them for their views or the industry they operate in. Firearms being a great example, crypto also being an example that had been really penalized by the previous administration and debanked by a lot of other financial institutions. But for us, what we set out to do several years ago was to introduce financial liberty to America, because there really was a culture of being stifled within the banking system. And for us, as I said, this next gen banking that we'll be introducing really is the fulfillment of that, because no longer will people have to wait for a wire transfer if they're making that we have a ton of small businesses as our customers. We bring on several hundred every month of new customer relationships with businesses, thousands of individual accounts as well, coming on and routinely. And this really allows things to be instantaneous, take advantage of the blockchain and smart contracts, really drive down the friction of time and, let's say, foreign currency exchange if you're doing international payments, or if it's just as simple as general middle America wanting to understand how do you buy Bitcoin or Ethereum or XRP, and normally it's a very cumbersome process, and maybe some of the listeners are complete pros at it, but a lot of people it can be really intimidating with the various exchanges to open an account with, the wallets, the interaction, trying to get money from your fiat or your US dollar accounts, trying to get it on chain can take days sometimes, or have fees. If to do it immediately, you need to use a credit card or a debit card. And we've really stripped out that friction and really, we feel, put together an interface that is made for the broad audience of hardworking Americans that are looking to expand their financial capabilities within our system. So we're really excited about it. I will say, if there's a full online demonstration, a video kind of or not interactive, but an online demo on the front page, the top of our website at oldglorybank.com. And I'd encourage anyone who's interested in really seeing what it looks and feels like. Will learn a lot by going there.
Dean Owen, I know you probably got a couple questions for Eric about this. I know I do.
Mine resolve around the reporting, because of course account balances have to be recorded to IRS on a periodic basis. How do you do that when you have an asset, the Bitcoin or the digital currency, that floats in value?
Well, there's there's no, so we're not paying interest. In fact, stablecoin is not allowed to earn interest. And so there wouldn't be any, IRS reporting the way on your checking and savings, would have interest being reported. Just an asset. Initially, we're not holding the assets. We are allowing you to link to your external wallet. I don't think that really would be, assets wouldn't really be a reportable event, even if we were holding on a custodial basis for our customers. But there's really nothing that we see would be, require additional reporting. And that's really the one of the attractions here is just essentially for the transactions flying over to the top of the Federal Reserve and things that your normal ACH and debit transaction channels would have more of a trail there. But we certainly envision things like firearm purchases where people are really suspect of, for good reason, of the traditional banking system and the tracking that Visa and MasterCard have communicated, having an interest in doing. There really are some great functionality that we're introducing with this platform, as well as the Old Glory Pay, PayPal equivalent that we've had up and running for a couple years now.
Yeah. In your view, Eric, how is the debanking situation going? Is it getting meaningfully better under Trump? And what would it take for that to just roar back with a vengeance if we lost an election?
Yeah, well, you just answered it. And I think irrespective of the fact that Trump did introduce an executive order, against debanking, and actually compelled the wrongdoers, all the banks that were escorting out customers that they didn't like. He's encouraged them or actually compelled them to go back and take those customers on. Kind of jokingly among our crowd at Old Glory Bank, we're like, hey, it's great you say, no more debanking, but, we've always been here, solving that on a market-based, in a market-based manner, really being a market-based solution. We actually feel that, look, if a business wants to do that, that's fine. That's all the more reason for a role for a bank like Old Glory Bank. But you raised the point absolutely, Rod, is that even if the big banks now are kind of having this, mea culpa, and they're self-flagellating and say, oh, well, we won't do this anymore, and we recognize that we had been, but we won't anymore. Why would that not change the second you're in a different administration that does encourage and support that? So we feel we really are a market-based solution there. And why would anyone stick with the bank, even if in today's environment they seem willing to serve someone? It's certainly not on a reliable basis the second the next administration comes in, perhaps, if it's not the way that we would want it to go.
How do you insulate yourself from it? And more on top of that, how do you insulate your clients from that, your customers, when, say, things go sideways in 2028? How does that look for Old Glory Bank, and what kind of things can you set up to make sure that my money is going to be safe and I'm not going to get thrown to the curb?
Well, the simplest is come to oldglorybank.com and open up an account. I mean, that's really why we exist, was that what we are observing in the marketplace of banks not serving everyone, banks reporting transactions to the feds if they happen to see someone was shopping at Cabela's or Bass Pro and therefore might be a firearms owner. So that's really why we exist. And I would encourage anyone to recognize that, hey, having multiple relationships. I mean, we'd love all of your banking, but why not spread things out and make sure you're with a bank that you can always rely on? And that's even separate from, the great functionality and capabilities I was describing earlier with our next gen banking that'll be introduced next year.
So as you introduce this to your customers, I always hear FDIC-insured, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Does that still blanket that, or how does that work when you start getting into the crypto world and you start to merge banking with it?
Yeah, not for the crypto.
Okay.
Now, I will point out, so certainly your checking savings, that's all FDIC insured up to $250,000. And of course, if you have a spouse, you can spread it out. It's per individual or even a joint account. You can leverage that 250. As to the crypto holdings, though, we will be issuing OGB, USD, our issued stablecoin, which the Genius Act really has defined and carved out the role of banks going forward as the sanctioned issuers of stablecoin. Stablecoin is as safe as it must be, and as defined in the Genius Act, must be 100% backed by U.S. Treasuries of maturity no greater than 93 days. So essentially, liquid cash treasuries, to where it essentially is similar to a digital or electronic cashier's check. It's universally accepted. It's the ERC-20 platform that, I could send stablecoin to you. You could easily convert it to fiat. And so it's got that safety and security. Now, if you move funds, from your checking account onto the blockchain and have it in our stablecoin, certainly the second you buy something with it, if you buy, Bitcoin or Ethereum, XRP, you name it, then, it is what it is in the marketplace, and it certainly has, has its ups and downs, and would not, have any of the securities that you'd have up until that point, or the security that you have up to that point.
Gotcha. I know there's going to be a big education process with yours truly and with other people that are just starting to put their toe into the crypto water. Now it's going to merge with banking, and we'll keep tabs on you guys if that's all right, Eric. Check in with you after the first of the year. And Dean or Rob, if you got any other questions, fire away with Eric.
I noticed that there's a lot of talk about deregulation going on in the whole banking sector as a general rule. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing on the ground from that.
Well, certainly the regulation has been tough. The number of banks in the U.S. gone from, just 10 or 15 years ago, there were something like 8,000 or more banks, and now it's more like 4,500. There is a tremendous amount of compliance burden on smaller banks, which I think is bad for our economy. It's the small local community banks are the ones who lend the most to small business, and it's just there's a very important role in our marketplace, and so we certainly encourage flexibility and easing of regulation. I think it's very important. It was very forward thinking for the current administration to introduce the Genius Act, because it really has defined what stablecoin is, what characteristics that it must have, who can issue them, and really is unifying how people acquire stablecoin, what is backing it. And it really is going to drive essentially displacing, the demand for treasuries and U.S. dollar, that, the petro contracts in dollars, as that's kind of gone down and taken a little bit of pressure off, or lessened the amount of demand for our dollar. Because the U.S. is so forward thinking with stablecoin, that's a new kind of invigorating demand element for the U.S. dollar. And so we certainly welcome that. I think so. Some regulation is good because it makes it less of Wild West for newer areas like crypto. But the nuts and bolts administrative regulation of banks, we certainly applaud, lightening the load, because it really can be prohibitive, operationally on a lot of smaller organizations.
Understood. Eric, once again, thank you for your time. We're going to be checking in with you guys after the first of the year to see how the crypto and banking are getting along, in Q1 as we move this forward. We wish you all the best at Old Glory Bank. A Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and blessings to all your employees and your customers. And thank you so much for being a part of the Freedom Chamber as a founding member. We really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care.